Howdy folks! Since this is a complete waste of a holiday season due to the plague, I decided I would do a review of one of the scariest films I've ever seen, which is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1971. It's based on a book by Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl was my favorite author growing up. I remember in 5th grade when I was at the Scholastic Book Fair and I saw he had come out with a new book named Matilda. I remember clutching it to my chest and my eyes getting all misty. I loved the witches, I loved the BFG. James and the Giant Peach. So imagine my delight at learning that there was a Willy Wonka movie. It's gotta be great, right? Nope. Nightmare fuel. This is considered a children's movie. I consider it a war crime worthy of trial at The Hague. Let's get into it. It opens, credits roll. There's a bunch of cookies going down an assembly line through chocolate. They look like Kit Kats. Some Hershey's Kisses on a conveyor belt, totally fine. The credits end, and we're in some nondescript European village. Half the cast is rocking British accents, and the other half is doing American, also fine. Maybe in this movie, the USA is still a colony of England. All the children run out of school and go to the nearest candy shop, where here we go. Bill, the candy shop owner, sings what I assume is supposed to be a charming song. You're probably all familiar with it. Sammy Davis Jr. sang it, The Candy Man. I think they were trying to go for sweet and childlike and endearing, but he is, without question, a child molester. The song might as well have been called Help Me Find My Puppy, or Want to Watch Movies in the Basement. He hands out free candy, he lovingly touches the children, he unwraps their lollipops while smiling and gazing at them. Charlie Bucket is looking through the window because he can't afford any chocolate, and then he goes and picks up his newspapers for his route. On his way home at dusk, he walks past the Wonka Chocolate Factory. It has a big locked wrought iron gate, and while he's peering through the bars, some old man with a unibrow and a cart filled with knives and cleavers stares intensely at Charlie and starts reciting poetry out of nowhere. He says, "Nobody ever goes in, and nobody ever comes out." And then he rolls his creaky cart away with the knives and cleavers clanking while uneasy music plays in the background. Now we're in Charlie's home. His family is super poor. It's just his mom and his 4 bedridden grandparents, George, Georgina, Joe, and Josephine. Charlie gets home, and because he's a good kid, he bought a loaf of bread with his paperboy money. His mother says, "We'll have a feast," and they eat it with cabbage broth. It's very Dickensian.
God bless us, everyone. Morning, Mr. Scrooge, it's Christmas.
Charlie asks Grandpa Joe why the gates to the Wonka factory are always closed. Grandpa Joe says a candy competitor named Slugworth was stealing Wonka's ideas, so he shut the factory down. A few years later, it started back up, but no one knows who works there. Because remember, no one ever goes in and no one ever comes out. While Charlie is in class, this Jewish kid runs it. They don't say he's Jewish, but I get a real, I go to summer camp in the Catskills vibe off of him. He runs into the room and says Wonka has hidden 5 golden tickets in 5 random candy bars, and whoever finds them gets to come inside the factory and a lifetime supply of Wonka chocolate bars. The entire population of Earth goes bonkers searching for these things. The first one is found in Bavaria by a butcher's son named Augustus Gloop. He's a portly boy and he's having his own private mukbang. Mukbang. Look it up. The second kid to find a golden ticket is Veruca Salt. She is an entitled little brat, and her father is more than willing to provide whatever she wants, whenever she wants it. This movie is like Fisher-Price's My First 7 Deadly Sins. So Augustus Gloop is gluttony, and Veruca Salt is greed. Next is Violet Beauregard. She chews gum constantly, like nonstop. And, not surprisingly, she's a snotty bitch about it because all these children, with the exception of Charlie, are trash. So I guess her sin is chewing loudly with her mouth open, which isn't a capital vice, but there aren't 7 kids, so we're gonna do a little modification. My favorite part of the scene is the newsman interviewing Violet Beauregard and her father looks exactly like real-life serial killer Ed Kemper, which is totally in keeping with this film. Oh, important. Every time the news is interviewing the winning child, a man with a scar on his cheek leans over and whispers something into the kid's ear. I'm already primed by the Candyman song and the Cleaver guy, so a million red flags are going up. Who's that? Who's that guy? Why is he whispering to the children? Where are the adults that are supposed to be protecting them? Were there too many children in 1971 and they could afford to shave off a few? The whisperer with the scar on his face is German actor Günther Meisner. He's famous for his several portrayals of Adolf Hitler and this. Next kid to find a golden ticket is Mike TV, T-E-E-V-E-E. He watches a lot of TV. One guesses that it's mostly cowboy stuff because he can't wait to get a gun. He's a very pow 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 kind of kid. At this moment, some millionaire in Paraguay says he's got the last golden ticket, so Charlie's chances are over. Charlie goes and visits his mom where she's washing clothes in a giant tub with a stick. Lady, there are cars on the street. I'm sure a mechanical device for laundry has been invented by now. Charlie's mom sings a song called Cheer Up Charlie, which is immediately forgettable. The next day, Charlie's at school. He's bummed. His life is crap. He goes outside and he hears that the Paraguay ticket is a fake. And then he finds a big coin in the storm drain. It's like fate. Charlie runs to Bill's candy shop and purchases a Wonka bar, and when he opens it, golden ticket. Everybody starts grabbing at him, so he runs home. On his way home, running through the alley, the whispering German pops out, and we hear what he's been telling the winning children. He says he is Slugworth, Wonka's biggest competitor, and if after the tour of the factory, Charlie brings Slugworth the prototype of the everlasting gobstopper, Slugworth will give Charlie 10,000 units of whatever currency of the country we're in. It's never really established. Charlie gets home and shows everyone his golden ticket. Then his Grandpa Joe, who we're supposed to love, pulls some bullshit that I am not interested in. He says he's been in that bed for 20 years and his feet have not touched the ground in that time. But the second he sees that golden ticket, he pops right out of that bed and does a little song and dance number. Hey, listen, I love chocolate too, but you could see that the family was struggling. Maybe haul your ancient ass. You're not even that old, just shitbag, and find some form of gainful employment so y'all weren't eating cabbage broth every damn night. I know I'm supposed to respect my elders, but you are garbage, Grandpa Joe, and I will not be charmed by your jaunty two-step. Grandpa Joe can suck it. Okay, so the next day, the winners go to the factory. The 5 kids are there. Each kid is allowed a guardian. Grandpa Joe. So they're all outside waiting. At 10 a.m. precisely, the door opens and a man in a top hat with a purple velvet jacket comes out. And he's limping and using a cane. Here's Gene Wilder's explanation of why he chose to do that. When I make my first entrance, I'd like to come out of the door carrying a cane and then walk towards the crowd with a limp. After the crowd sees Willy Wonka is disabled, they all whisper to themselves and then become deathly quiet. As I walk towards them, my cane sinks into one of the cobblestones I'm walking on and stands straight up by itself. But I keep on walking until I realize that I no longer have my cane. I start to fall forward, and just before I hit the ground, I do a beautiful forward somersault and bounce back up to great applause. When asked why, he responded, because from that time on, no one will know if I'm lying or telling the truth. Yeah, that's gaslighting. You gaslight the whole time. There are no characters I like. Charlie is meh. We've already established my feelings on Grandpa Joe. The winning kids and their parents should fall into the ocean and die. And Willy Wonka is the manipulative boyfriend from a Lifetime movie. So now the winners and their guardians go into the factory for the tour. Wonka has weird, unstable energy. He pushes everyone through a door and into an extremely small hallway, and after everyone is suitably freaked out from being smooshed together, he opens the same door they came in, and it's a different hallway. And now we come to the most memorable place in the film. It's an enormous, bright, fantastical room filled with plants and flowers and fungi, and everything is edible, made of candy. There's a chocolate waterfall and river going through the middle of the room, and that is how Wonka churns and mixes his chocolate. It's how he makes it frothy and light. Wonka sings the song Pure Imagination, which is very famous. He sings, "Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination." But because this place is a death trap, I like to sing, "Come with me and you'll be in a world of OSHA violations." Willy Wonka finishes singing and eats a teacup, like you do, and we meet the Oompa Loompas, who are the factory workers, played by achondroplasic dwarves, with green wigs and orange skin. But that answers our question about who works in the factory. At this time, Augustus Gloop falls into the river and gets sucked up by a pipe. See my alternate lyrics previously. He gets stuck in the pipe because he's a fatty fat, and when sufficient pressure builds up, he shoots off like a rocket to the fudge room. The Oompa Loompas sing an obnoxious "I Told You So" song about eating too much, and then they take Mrs. Gloop to go find her son. One kid down. Wonka encourages everyone to get on a boat. Doesn't that sound nice? A nice boat ride down a chocolate river. Anyone who is familiar with the scene is cringing right now. Spoiler. It's not nice. 4 Oompa Loompas are paddling in the back of the boat, and everything is hunky-dory until they go into a tunnel. Suddenly, the Oompa Loompas are paddling really fast, and it's really dark, and everyone is anxious. And then disturbing footage pops up on the wall. Real footage of a cockroach and a African millipede walking across a woman's mouth, and a chicken getting its head chopped off. This is a children's film. Willy Wonka starts singing this creepy song, and by the end, he is shrieking. I'm gonna read you some of the lyrics. I'm not gonna shriek them because I live in an apartment building, and my neighbors already have an unflattering view of me, and there's no need for me to reinforce that. But I am going to read them, and you have to imagine by the end, it's just cacophony. Not a speck of light is showing, so the danger must be growing. Are the fires of hell a-glowing? Is the grisly reaper mowing? Yes, the danger must be growing, for the rowers keep on rowing, and they're certainly not showing any sign that they are slowing. Everybody's panicking and screaming because why wouldn't you be? And then all of a sudden, it's over. At this point, I would be like, you know what? Amazing experience. I'm going to lay down in this wheelbarrow and have the Oompa Loompas push me over to the nearest exit and then just toss me out into the street because, you know what? I'm good. Thank you so much for this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. But these people keep going because they're greedy or curious or both. And conveniently, the next stop on the tour is the Invention Room with the everlasting gobstoppers. You can suck 'em and suck 'em and suck 'em and they never get any smaller. Wonka gives each child a gobstopper on the condition that they don't show it to anyone else. They all agree because they're terrible children, and then Wonka shows them an unfinished project. It's a piece of gum that tastes and feels like a 3-course meal. There's a shot right here of the dinner gum machine cranking and wheezing, and you see Gene Wilder's face between the pipes. He looks insane. I mean, if I found out that in order to get this shot, he drank a cocktail laced with LSD and meth, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. Violet, the gum-chewing kid, grabs the prototype out of Wonka's hand, even when he's like, still working out the kinks. First, there's tomato soup, and that's good. And there's roast beef and baked potato, and that's good. And then there's dessert, which is blueberry pie. At this point, Violet turns violet and blows up like a blueberry. Here come the Oompa Loompas. They sing their song about how gum chewing is gross, and then they roll Violet away with her father to go to the juicing room so she can be squeezed so she doesn't explode. 2 kids down. We pass lickable wallpaper, which sounds like the most unhygienic thing in existence. Like if the Blarney Stone was covered in fruit. If I'm channel surfing and this is on TV and this scene is on, I look away because I don't want to watch the cast French kissing drywall. This scene is referenced for 2 lines. Wonka says, "The strawberries taste like strawberries. The snozberries taste like snozberries." Veruca Salt replies, "Snozberry? Who's ever heard of a snozberry?" Wonka grabs her face, leans in really close and says, "We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams." What the fuck does he mean by that? What is he saying that for? Why? Oh my god, I hate their phone! No, that's too much. That's excessive. We don't need to do that. They all end up in the fizzy lifting drinks room. Oh, before I get into that, I told my bestie that I was recording this, and she told me that Roald Dahl wrote books for adults, and in those, the word snozberry has a very different meaning. They represent a man's... You know what? You don't need to know. Don't need to know. Fizzy lifting drinks room. Everyone begs to sample it, but Wonka says no, it's too strong. Charlie and Grandpa Joe linger behind and sample some, and everything's going great. They're flying around, they're doing somersaults, until they realize they're getting too close to the giant metal fan at the top of the room. They're about to be chopped into pieces, but then they start burping vigorously. I don't know which is worse, watching Grandpa Joe go to second base on some drywall, or watching Grandpa Joe behave like fermenting kimchi. We rejoin the tour, and we meet these giant white geese that lay giant chocolate eggs with golden shells. The egg leaves the goose's cloaca, and that lands on a pad that can tell them if the egg is good or bad. If it's good, the Oompa Loompas polish it and send it out, and if it's bad, the pad opens up and the egg falls down into the dumpster. Veruca Salt decides that she needs a goose that lays golden eggs, and is a total twat about it. She sings an obnoxious but extremely catchy song while knocking over everything, and when she unintentionally jumps on the egg pad as the finale to her big number, it decides she's a bad egg, and it opens up and she falls down the trash chute. Her doting father flings himself down the trash chute after her. Veruca! The Oompa Loompas chastise us. There's some delightful computer effects with text, and we're 3 kids down. Coming up is the only part of the film that I like. The remaining survivors get on a beautiful copper-covered vehicle called the Wonka-mobile. It looks kind of like a steam engine, and it's being filled with all the carbonated beverages ever. Everyone hops on, and it starts slowly chugging forward, but now it's spraying foamy bubbles all over everyone. Have you ever put dishwashing soap meant for the sink in the dishwasher? Do that if you'd ever like to unintentionally clean your floor. So that kind of foam is spraying over everyone. The machine starts making tuba noises and Wonka starts singing in German. The whole scene is pointless. They pass through some kind of car wash that cleans them all off, and then they go into the final room of the tour. So Wonka has figured out how to take a giant candy bar, zap it with a camera, and it shows up on a TV, normal sized, but you can take it off the screen. It's real. This seems like a product with an atrocious bottom line because a lot of chocolate becoming a little chocolate goes against everything I know about capitalism. But I see what he's trying to do. Mike TV jumps in front of the camera, zaps himself, and then he's on the TV screen, but he's tiny. The Oompa Loompas sing their patronizing horseshit song about watching too much television, which if you know anything about me is offensive and how dare you. And then they take Mike TV and his now passed out mother to the taffy room to be stretched. So now the only kid left is Charlie. Wonka walks them to the exit, bids them adieu, goes into his office and closes the door. Charlie and Grandpa Joe are confused because they're supposed to get a lifetime supply of chocolates. So they go into Wonka's office to confront him and he explodes because they broke the rules and everything is null and void. Famous scene. Wonka yells, "It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir." Gene Wilder is so enraged, his comb-over is flapping with every consonant. Grandpa Joe tells him that he's an inhuman monster, and Wonka responds with, "I said good day!" There's a meme on the internet that I love of this, and it's called Polite Otter, and you should look it up along with the mukbang. Charlie, being a sweet kid, before he leaves the office, forlornly puts the everlasting gobstopper on Wonka's desk, implying that even though Wonka is a colossal bag of dicks, Charlie is not going to sell him out to Slugworth. Immediately, Wonka's attitude changes. He hugs Charlie and tells him he's won. Turns out, Wonka hired the guy to play Slugworth to see if any of the kids were trustworthy, and since Charlie returned the gobstopper, he passed. Wonka, Grandpa Joe, and Charlie get into something called the Great Glass Elevator that they are told can go in any direction, and Wonka shoots them up and out the ceiling. Once they're out and floating over their nondescript European village, Wonka tells Charlie that he's not going to live forever, and he needs to train a child to eventually run the factory. So Charlie has won the factory. Everyone forgets what a manipulative asshole Wonka is. Everybody hugs. Everything is shiny rainbows. The end. It's a terrible movie. I do not recommend it. Why this is a classic, I will never understand. It's a horror film masquerading as a children's film, and it will seed trauma for years to come. It's fine. It's over. I feel like Andy Dufresne after he comes out of that poop tunnel in Shawshank Redemption. Well, I hope you're doing okay and have as merry a Christmas as possible under the circumstances.